Welcome to Older Militarist Radio TV and Real Lifelong Catholics. And what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today's program is titled The Curious History of Michael Voris and our brother Alexis Bonallo.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV, breaking new ground in independent Catholic media as a Catholic news source that's not controlled by any government agency and doesn't get money from any organization. And if you like this program, remember to leave a donation for Order Militaris Radio TV's studio fund, because AJ is handicapped, homebound, and his dream couldn't be achieved any way other by your help. But this is going to be one of our most popular programs. And I love this title, The Curious History of Michael Voris, because Michael Voris is one of the most famous, well-known names in Catholic media in the United States, and perhaps in the English-speaking world. There are those who love him and those who hate him, those who respect him and those who despise him. There's controversy everywhere about him. He does a lot of good work and exposing evil in the church. He has a checkered history, but in this program, we're going to tell you things about him that you don't know. And as far as I know, he has never spoken of, but I can't say I'm not a watcher of his channel. So this is going to be really interesting, and we're going to take you through the history of Michael Voris and his family. So where do you want to begin, AJ, with his father?
Yeah, so that's all right. So Russell Clinton Voris was in the U.S. Air Force from 1950 to 1974. He worked on the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Greene County, Ohio, during the government psyop of the UFOs.
So now, we know that the U.S. military ran this psyop called the whole UFO theory to cover for all their high-tech spying programs they had against Russia, because it was actually against treaty, but they were doing anything else. But what do you mean? Was the UFO investigation group associated with that Air Force base?
That's where the U.S. government said, "Oh yeah." Before there was the base in Nevada, this is where they would hold all that, evidence.
Okay, so so that's very interesting and curious. And now, who was his mother, and where is she from?
His mother is okay. So, really, hold on.
Okay,
So his mother was born in Manchester, England, during the Blitz.
Okay, and her name?
Yeah, getting that. For some reason, it didn't take on the website.
So this is an interesting thing. So while you're looking for, I'll tell the history. So most people don't know that during the Second World War, England was under constant air attack. It's called the Battle of Britain, and the Germans, when they were winning the air war, destroying bases and planes, Hitler lost it and decided to bomb cities, and they started bombing all kinds of cities, and Britain evacuated all the children of all the cities into the countryside to save them, and so a lot of children end up orphans because their parents back in the cities were bombed and blown to bits. So what's
his mother is Anne Josephine.
Anne Josephine, and what's her family name?
And Josephine Linden.
Linden. And how do you spell the family name?
Lydon.
Yes. And this is an Irish name. And as for Josephine, it was a very common name for women born in those years. I know confirmation, my own mother took Josephine as her name. And it was considered a very beautiful name for women. So, so he has a mother who's a British subject, born in the United Kingdom. That's very unusual. So how did his father, who was in the U.S. Air Force, meet the mother in the United Kingdom? Do we have any indication, any data that turns up that he was in England, like from his firstborn son?
He met his wife to be in 1952 in England. They married in 1953. His first son, Marshall, was born in 1954, but then there is something a little odd about him.
Okay, so his father met his mother when she was like 18 and married her when she was like 19. He's just a few years older. So this is one of those romantic stories you could write a book about, because a lot of American military were in Britain. Even during the war, they were marrying British gals. And pilots, obviously, I would assume he was a pilot, because they were considered debonair, and that would be, you could write a story about that. Sounds really interesting. But his eldest brother, the firstborn, you say there's something curious about him. What's his name, and on what day was he born, and where was he born?
He was born August 20th, 1954, but there are two different birth certificates.
You mean he was the same person? I mean, two different people with the same name were born on the same day, or the same person was born in two places on the same day?
Yeah, one says he was born in Manchester, and the other one has down Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Okay, so it is highly possible that they're just totally two different people. It is, that is possible. Because, well, we looked into it. Voris is a rather common name. It's Dutch in its origin. It exists in England, but it also exists in the United States, and spelled all different ways. But Wright-Patterson Air Base, well, that's where his father's was stationed. So you would conclude that that's probably his son. But then again, his mother's from England, and Manchester's not far from Birmingham, where she was from, I gather. So you would think that that's his son. But this is my guess, is he was born in England on a U.S. Air Force Base hospital or something of that sort, and his birth was registered according to U.S. treaty on the American Air Force Base where the father was stationed, so that he would be a U.S. citizen at birth. And but I don't watch Church Militant, but who would think that Michael Voris's ma was a British citizen? I always thought he was Polish. He's not Polish. And I didn't know he was Dutch. But I never thought that he had a brother born in England or a mother born in England. So that's a really interesting story, because that means if she was still a U.S. citizen when he was born with dual citizenship, United Kingdom and the United States. And, that's very interesting. So that's his older brother. And we found he has what? Does he have sisters and brothers? He has or does he just have one brother, as far as we know?
Yeah, let's go back to his father.
And is that his famous brother?
Yeah, that's his famous brother.
Okay, we'll talk about him in a moment. But how many brothers and sisters do we think he has?
Well, only lists him and Michael, but
You could have some nephews.
yeah, nephews or
Okay. So now it's going to talk about his famous brother, because this is one thing that really surprised me. I have not heard anyone talk about Michael Voris having a famous brother. And he's rather famous in the field of alternative healing. So who was he? What's his name? Where did he work? And what's this system of healing and he developed? What was his education like?
Yeah, Marshall Dean Voris. And he was internationally known as a psychotherapist, neuroscientist, theologian, and educator. Died at his home of a heart attack at age 48. The world he he had four doctorates, and he became internationally famous for his research in the field of neuroscience, a developer of the Serenity program. He founded the Delos Mind Body Institute for the betterment of humankind. Um,
And this method of healing involves what, like electronic stimulation of the brain?
mhm,
Now, and if you look at Delos mind body method, you'll find it all around the world. People run. I think they're running like franchises or something, or maybe they just took the idea and run it. But did he work on a government contract for investigating in the way to make people calm with electrical stimulation?
yeah, he got that. We found out, and he also was working on treating sex offenders with that electronic.
Lockshot. Now, back in the 90s, or I think it was like the 90s or the late 80s, he had his government contract. He wrote a paper with several other experts. Was an important field of study for the MK Ultra program, because once they could somehow inject people with an organic electronic growing system that would interface with their brain, one of the most important things is understanding how they could maintain people calm, because you can't control people unless you can calm them down.
Mhm.
And so this research is very important for that project. I'm not saying he knew he was doing this for that reason, but that's probably why the government was giving the contract. So uh, he lived and worked in Texas, and he had several properties there. And it's a tragedy he died so young, and perhaps that's why Michael Voris doesn't talk about it so much. But a very famous brother, highly intelligent, with 4 degree, I mean 4 degrees and stuff like that, and it's quite amazing. And what year did his brother pass away? Do we know?
Yeah. So, August 2nd, 2003.
August 2nd, Feast of Our Lady, Queen of the Angels of the Porciunco. So it's a big feast for us Franciscans. So that's his famous brother. Now, he himself, now we call him Michael Voris, but that's not his actual name. What's his full name?
Gary Michael Voris.
Gary Michael Voris. So he puts emphasis on the better name. Gary is a common English name. So um, how old is he? Do we know? Let's not give his birth date out for reasons of personal thing, but how old is he? And do we know anything about his education, where he studied?
Yeah, he studied at Notre Dame University. Let's see here.
What did he get his degree in?
Okay. He got his degree in communications with a focus on history and politics.
Okay. So Notre Dame, very well thought of school in Catholic circles, although it's got also a lot of government funding. So his father had a good sense to send him to a good school. And he's just a
And
few years younger than his brother. I think he's like about 4 years younger than his brother. So what do we know of his career before he ends up with Church Militant Media? What did he do in life?
so he says he worked with different television as anchor, producer, reporters with various CBS affiliates in New York, Albany, Duluth, Cheyenne, Wyoming, and also Fox. But
On his LinkedIn, who did he actually claim to be working for?
Yeah, he's working with his maybe uncle, Wayne Voris of Wayne uh, Voris Properties.
Okay, well, that's either his uncle, or maybe it's a nephew, a son of his brother, and that property might be the estate his brother left because his brother was pretty well off with all his things. But what is the other company he claimed to have a long working relationship with?
So he says he used to work with CBS and Fox, but he actually worked with Bader News Group, and the boss is Nancy Bader.
Bader, Bader.
Hmm?
Okay, and this is this is a company that supplies talent to stations. And so if he has a long relationship with them, I assume that he actually worked for her and she sent him out to different stations who needed staffing issues. And so that's a slightly different story than what you usually find about Michael Voris, but that shows you how he got so much experience in media and how he can easily run a church militant TV operation and knows all about it. But let's look into um, who is Bader? What is her company? What's it known to do? And what are some of her associations?
So Bader Media Group says we are excited to have been awarded a SAM designation as a top-level U.S. government vendor, and Bader Media continues to respond to requests from the United Nations as a longtime video and news global vendor and supplier.
Okay, so she has clients with the U.S. government and the United Nations, really top clients. And she herself, was it on her LinkedIn page? What does she now claim that she's doing?
She is now the president of the Bank of the West in Loveland, Colorado. And
Okay, the Bank of the West, I think I've heard of that. Aren't they owned by some big international bank?
yeah, it's owned by the BNP Paribas out of Brazil.
Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so that's the bank which, according to published authors and my own investigations, is the one that is backing the Mafia St. Gall, backed Bergoglio for the papacy, and might have been the one that handled the funds used to bribe the College of Cardinals in 2013. But it's a bank that's totally behind Bergoglio and the Amazon Synod and all that. So this might explain why he will criticize the bishops, but he will never touch Bergoglio. And so this might be he might be doing that at the request of Mrs. Bader. What else do we know about Michael Voris that we've found?
Um, that all of the records are pretty well scrubbed of any damning details.
Yeah, we can't. Well, he himself has confessed his life, but there's nothing like on him anywhere. You would imagine that journalists would be writing about that.
Mm-hmm.
And but so if the journalists aren't writing about it, either they consider him an insignificant figure, which I really doubt because he's not, or he's has such strong friendships, they don't want to talk about that, and which is kind of strange because he's such a ultra conservative Catholic. You would imagine the liberal media to come after this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we found out he went to high school in Ohio and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So anything else that we can add to our little background report on Michael Voris?
Yeah, so he was also president of the um, Wayne Voris company where he's working with his family, and has a salad, and he's continued to work with it. And according to the records, he has like a $3 million salary or something.
$3 million salary. Well, salary estimates on the internet can't really be trusted. I think I saw one for myself saying I have 600,000. It's like, oh, if you think that, send me the money if you find out what that is. So that might not be the case, but I do think that perhaps his famous brother was so well off and left such a large an estate that there is some kind of like real estate fund that he's getting a lot of it. People ask Michael, where's Michael Voris getting all the money? It might actually be a lot of it is personal money because it seems like that estate he's a beneficiary of in some manner. So that concludes our report on Michael Voris, some things about it. You see, he has a very interesting personal history, and I hope a journalist sits down and talks to him one day about his father, his mother born in England, and his brother's famous background and things like that, because well, we all know he's confessed his bad part of his life, but he has a very interesting family history, which most people don't know a thing about.
Yeah.
And thank you, AJ, for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV. We're going to do a series of reports of people's backgrounds, and you're going to find this very interesting. And what are some of the upcoming shows, AJ, that you are preparing?
Well, we were starting up another investigation on a journalist, opera singer, which uncovered a lot of interesting details. He was helping with the Pope Benedict issues and everything.
And you're going to do one on Putin? We all thought Putin was Russian, but he might be Georgian.
Yeah.
And then what is this operation, this CIA operation you're reading up on?
Yeah, so Operation Trust started with the old Bolshevik regime, which went into the current KGB,
That's right.
FSB, and how they got money laundered into the West and got into high places with people in the West. And
okay, so there's going to be some interesting shows coming up. And thank you for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV. Remember to like this show on social media and consider a donation to AJ's studio fund.
this is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.